Well, dear, here we are on the estate. Have you seen any poachers lately?
No, not for a while. I got the hounds out
Well, that's
when
a
I
very
saw
good
them.
idea. Chase them off. Well, why don't we go for a wander around the perimeter?
That would be an excellent idea.
Let's go. We're back with Nikon's latest edition of the Z50 camera, the Z52, which we've had for over a month now. At $960 US, it's an affordable APS-C camera, or DX in Nikon parlance. APS-C is a smaller sensor than full-frame, 23.5 by 15.7 millimeters for this camera, and the Z52 has the same 21 megapixel CMOS sensor as its forerunner. But this allows the camera itself to be smaller, so it's great for street shooting and location video work, as we'll see later. We love the Z52, but let's get a few negatives out of the way first. Hi, Ray here. As mentioned in our unboxing video, there's no in-body image stabilization, and that's probably the most limitation. But we knew that going in. It means that you have to use best practices with lenses that don't have inbuilt stabilization, shoot at a shutter speed equal to lens length, so 1/50th at 50 millimeters for instance, brace the camera and press the shutter, don't stab it. The DX 16-50 f3.5 to 6.3, one of the available hit lenses, is stabilized along with a number of Nikon's DX lenses. Electronic stabilization is available for video, though I don't really like to use it because of the kind of distortions that are often introduced, especially with wider lenses, or say wider with this lens. So, maybe a gimbal? This would be the perfect lightweight camera for that use. But what didn't occur to me, as it should have, no IBIS also means no sensor cleaning function in the camera. That's not a deal breaker, but another best practices caution when changing lenses. So, don't do it like we did in our unboxing video. I mentioned in another video, when the original Z50 was launched, my reasons for passing it over for a second Z6.
The first thing that attracted me to the Z50 at first glance was, of course, the size and weight savings, even over the Z6, which, of course, is a heck of a lot more compact and light than the D800.
I pointed to not so much the lesser power of the battery that it used, the ENEL25, but just that it was different to the ENEL15, the battery used in my existing Z6 at that time.
First thing that hit me was it's a different battery. Of course, smaller battery probably needed for the smaller body size.
More on the battery later. There's no joystick. Same goes for the ZF. You use the multi-selector to move the focus point. But when it comes to the multi-selector, the Z52, it seems a bit more finicky and definitely tough to use with gloves. I'm a little bit spoiled by the higher quality, or at least firmer buttons of the full-frame cameras. However, I welcome the new layout that matches more closely the latest cameras, like the Z8, Z9, the review button, for example. The ZF is the exception here, with that button in the old location, but this is great to have things all the same now. I'll talk more about controls later. So, a few cons, minor also. I actually wanted an APS-C camera for size and weight saving way back, as well as the fact that I often review APS-C lenses as I did earlier this month. And now I have a collection of such lenses gathering dust on my shelf that I only use occasionally with my full-frame Nikons in DX mode. So, I came up with a plan. Wouldn't my wife, Amanda, love a new, real camera? Maybe you saw her reaction in the aforementioned video. And she's been enjoying the experience, because there's a lot to like about this camera, not the least something that you can't see, at least not without disassembling the camera. The X-Speed 7 processor, which powers many of the performance improvements. When it comes to build, first, this has a slightly larger body than the original, and that's possibly to help with heat dissipation in relation to the excellent video specs. We'll get to those in a moment. Fiber reinforced plastic makes up the majority of the body, the usual well-designed grip and overall ergonomics. I actually prefer this to my ZF, really solid. The 16 to 50 lens that came in the bundle that we bought, it's an excellent and really a no-brainer for general photography. Both Amanda and I have been enjoying using it with the Z52. It works well for both photos and also for video. Again, as mentioned in the unboxing, there are just 5 DX APS-C lenses from Nikon. And again, I do hope Nikon puts development into more lightweight DX lenses. In the meantime, as I say, I do have a collection of APS-C lenses from third parties, and there are quite a few Z-mount options out there, more all the time. Of course, there's nothing stopping us from using Nikon's full-frame lenses with this camera. There's 45 to choose from now, 48 including teleconverters and the FTZ adapter. And goodness knows how many F-mounts that you can use with the FTZ adapter. Hundreds. This video isn't going to be a deep dive into all the specs, functions, and setup possibilities, but I will mention some of its best features. And the Z52 is a cut above the original in terms of video, so let's look at those first. As I say, the Z52 uses the same sensor as the Z50, but Nikon has somehow exploited some hidden functionality to give us. Full width 4K video up to 30p, we get 4K 60, albeit with a crop, luckily not something that I'll use on this camera, I think. Internal 10-bit or even N-Log or HLG high dynamic range capture. Another thing that this camera inherits from the other Z system cameras, like the Z9, Z8, ZF and Z6III, a waveform display. I personally don't know of another camera in this price range that offers this desirable video exposure tool. I know a lot of people have been asking for this, a video recording lamp. So, in addition to the orange border on the rear LCD, we now have this handy tally light. So, we like this little camera's video specs. Really, really excellent. Among the release modes, C15 and C30 gives us high-speed electronic shutter modes at 15 and 30 frames per second. That's just JPEGs, but it works nicely in my experience. We also have pre-burst with the shutter half pressed. I'm really very impressed with the autofocus and tracking options that debuted in higher-end Nikon mirrorless cameras. The Z52 inherits 9 subject recognition modes, 6 more than the Z50, as well as 3D tracking mode. For video specifically, vloggers will like the product review autofocus mode. Somehow it recognizes a product when it's held up, and that overrides face recognition. As I mentioned, I like the actual layout of all the controls, and there's two programmable function buttons on the front of the Z52. It's also very nice to have a dedicated picture control button to access color modes. There's 31 in all. In addition to that, you can adjust or download additional flexible picture control profiles. Though it's still 2.36 million dot resolution, the Z6II viewfinder is actually brighter than the original, up to 1000 nits. Like the ZF-C, Z30, ZF, and most recently the Z6III, the Z52 has a flippy screen rather than a tilting screen. So I'm starting to adapt, since I also own the ZF and the Z6III, something I didn't like originally, but yeah, I'm adapting. A little pop-up flash is a really handy thing to have at parties. It's a nice fill that works like a charm. Oh, and I also forgot the camera's iMenu. As with all the other Z mirrorless cameras, this sort of quick access menu is indispensable to adjust various settings and functions. It's customizable according to your preferences. Now, I've covered that in more detail with other Z-series cameras that I own, but customization is pretty straightforward. The customizable user settings, U1, U2, and 3 on the top dial are really handy, great to quickly access frequently used settings. As someone commented recently on my channel, for instance, you could add a black and white option here from the camera's profiles. That's a great idea. Now, I'm primarily a manual shooter, as I have it set here, but this camera is appropriate for auto or program, assuming that you use it as a no-fuss point and shoot. And there's also scene mode that includes 16 different presets appropriate to those subjects. This is a great starter camera, but I must say that it goes well beyond beginner status, thanks again to the amazing computational power of X-Speed 7. Yes, the Z52 is excellent for location use, and as camera 2 operator, Amanda loves the lightweight simplicity, and I, as an editor, I love that I can easily match the internal 10-bit that I use most often for these videos, I should say, with other Z series cameras like the Z6III. But how about power? So more on the battery, the INIU-25A. We didn't buy an extra with this camera on day one, but after the first day out, well, it became clear that the battery didn't last long. And that was just shooting stills. I can't give you exact numbers, but it seemed like an hour or so, and it was time to recharge, via the USB-C, of course. And it makes sense that the X-Speed 7 makes more demands. I've heard that the Z52 actually drains the battery faster than the original Z50, despite the higher capacity of the INIU-25A. We looked around all the local photo stores for an INIU-25A battery, but no avail. So, Amazon to the rescue, right? Except I pressed the buy button on an INIU-25, the Z50 battery. It works, but with 10% less capacity than the 25A. It runs out even faster. So, when it comes to powering this Z52 camera, we never leave home without a power bank and this palm-sized iNIU Cougar P63 power bank fits the bill. It has a rated capacity of 25,000 milliamp hours. That's 91.25 watt hours. So already you're looking at 20 times the power of the 7.6 volt 1250 milliamp hour INIU 25A. Especially when we're shooting video, as we are here today, an auxiliary power source is a must-have for the Z52. But we want to stay light, right? So this is perfect for the job. It weighs just 392.3 grams, under a pound. It has USB-C ports, 1100 watt maximum in out, and a 45 watt maximum out. That's powering the camera right here. And 18 watt max USB-A. Nice display to check the remaining juice percentage. This provides 110 watt high-speed charging for 2 devices at once. So for lightweight location shoots like this, it'll charge all the devices that we might have on hand, including phones and the MacBook. And it recharges in 2 hours using, for instance, my 61 watt MacBook charger. It comes with a USB-C cable and mesh pouch, and I'm using the pouch to hang the battery here on the tripod. This battery may be compact overall, but it's a little bit too beefy to fit the small rig clamp that I use on larger rigs. Not that that's the use case here. So thanks to iNiU for sending this along for us to try out. At just $66.99 US, it's very competitively priced. So if this looks like something that you'd be interested in, I'll add purchase links in the description. But excellent product so far. That's the Z52. But before I go, here's some news about the Z8 and Z6III. Yes, we have new firmware for both the Z8 and Z6III, and both of these, as we saw with the last update for the Z9, firmware 5.10, these changes are mainly to accommodate the functions of the new Z28 to 135mm f4 PZ lens, but with a couple of bonuses. So, in the case of firmware 2.10 for the Z8 in video recording, and we have a new supplementary firmware update manual that covers these, high-res zoom is now available when the image area is set to DX. Added a Power High-Res Zoom Collab item to the Custom Settings menu in the position of G10. Then, these are really good to see, added a Shutter Mode item to the Custom Settings menu in position of G13. Added Zebra Pattern Color to G15, Zebra Pattern, in the Custom Settings menu. Added options for customizing the brightness information display to G18 brightness information display in the custom settings menu. The shutter mode, that's the addition of shutter angle. That came with the last Z9 update, and we get improved exposure tools. In controls, some more additions related to the new power zoom. Under other changes, iMenu options for the PZ lens, and finally some bug fixes. Same for the Z6III firmware 1.10, mostly for the 28 to 135 power zoom in terms of video and controls, but we'll also get the excellent shutter angle and exposure tools. So now we have 3 Z cameras with these great video features. Since this is only the 3rd update, with previous versions only minor updates, there's a few more bug fixes here. And this one should be highlighted. I'll draw your attention to reduced noise in dark areas of N-Log videos. I'll be testing to report back on that improvement. Is that related to the complaint about flickering? As I've discussed here, that came from some so-called tests that pushed exposure to ridiculous limits. But we always welcome improvements to log. For the rest, I'll let you pause and peruse. Finally, and put this under rumours for the moment, an update may be coming to the ZF. Let's hope that includes some of the changes we've just discussed, especially shutter angle. And Nikon, if you're listening, shutter lock. I think this cake's looking lovely at this time of year, don't you, darling?
Yes, it is beautiful. The gardeners really look after it well for us.
They do indeed. I think that we should probably...
Go back for tea, don't
Oh,
you think?
yes.
Yes.
If I can get up this hill. If you found this video useful, please do give it the old thumbs up. And if this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss new content from me. In the meantime, take care, cheers. We'll see you later.